Hello, welcome back to Hunter Tuned. Today we're going to talk about some FuelTech stuff and all the issues that I've had so far with the Grom on FuelTech FT450. The plug-and-play harness, in my opinion, needs some work in order to make all this stuff work right. I did have quite a bit of issues that I talked about. If you guys could please watch this video to the end and leave some comments of what you guys think maybe some of this stuff is about on here. You'll probably learn something too, whether you like bikes or not. This is good information, I think, on just diagnosing this thing out. Being a little small engine, we kind of get to understand stuff a little bit better. That's kind of why I like working on these little bikes and Groms. They've actually taught me quite a bit of stuff and making me a better tuner at the end of the day, I think, especially working on such a little temperamental little 4-stroke thumper. With a giant injector now and a big fuel system. Yeah, enjoy the video, guys, and thanks for watching. Hello, welcome back to Hunter Tuned. Today I'm going to talk about my FuelTech FT450 on my 2020 Honda Grom that I installed. So I installed it in the last video, I got it running, and since then I have ridden the bike when it's been warm out, which has been a rarity in Wisconsin. But if the roads are dry and it's above fucking 20 degrees, I'd gladly take this thing out and get some tuning done on it. But I wanted to update you guys on what I've all had to do to get this thing functional. I got the speedometer working. The speedometer does not function on the FuelTech stock. I had to go through and power the speed signal and send the input into the FuelTech. So I had to do that. Look up the diagrams, whatever, all that. I also built this, this is the factory, not factory, but this is a Taiga carbon piece that sits over the factory cluster, typically. So like on this stock Grom, it would just fit like right on top of here with double-sided tape. And that's what I had on here, but I actually used it for a, kind of like a mini windshield in a way. And my buddy Nick, the one that helped me paint the Integra, we actually built this little bracket, and it mounts to the top bolts on the FuelTech and mounts the wideband. And it also mounts the windshield, or the, you know, the cover piece here. So this thing looks awesome. It's not, it just looks awesome. I'm super happy with how this all came out, and it's very sturdy. Everything works. So I got that done. And I also, yesterday, finished up the fuel system on the Grom. So hopefully I won't have to mess with the fuel system anymore, and this should power and should supply enough fuel for whatever I want to do with this bike. If I want to turbo it, shoot nitrous in it, whatever, you know, M5 fuel, whatever we want to do, this fuel system should do it. I installed a Walbro 255 fuel pump in this bike, and I powered the fuel pump directly off the battery via a relay. I took the wiring that normally powered the stock pump, and I'm using it to trigger a relay to send direct battery power to the Walbro 255 fuel pump. The other two wires that normally go to the sending unit for the gas gauge don't work with the FuelTech. Like, you don't have a fuel gauge with the FuelTech unless you measure the resistance between the float level when it's up and down. You have to have it plugged in and then measure the resistance and then set up a custom input to the FuelTech, which I didn't care to waste another input on this thing. This bike is going to be a kind of go rip it around town and come home kind of thing. Hopefully I don't run out of gas and forget to fill it. But it's only a gallon, and this thing goes through it pretty much every time I ride it now with the big motor. So no gas gauge, which is unfortunate. I'm sure I can figure something out in the future if I really care. If I run out of gas more than like twice, I'll probably fucking do something about it. But for now, I don't have a fuel gas gauge, because when I put the Walbro 255 fuel pump in there, there was no way to fit the you know, this tank is pretty small, and I have the fuel pump sitting right in the sump of the tank down here. So yeah, that's what I did there. I also put a fuel pressure regulator on it. This is just like an Amazon fuel pressure regulator, and I ran 6AN line from the feed going in, and then I also have a return line off the bottom of the regulator going into the bottom of the tank here, and I welded a 6AN bung into the bottom of the tank. I drilled this out, and then I welded this bung into the bottom of the tank right there. And then this is the feed line going to the injector, and I just hose clamped onto a 6AN line there. I'm sure I could figure something out that's a little better, but that goes into my injector, which is also new. It's a genuine Bosch from Snake Eater, the GB line, and it's the smallest one he had. It was like a 750cc or something like that. And it's LS3 style injector. So the LS3 style fits the Grom intake manifold grommets because you have to have a very small spray end, like the part of the injector that sprays. So like I have some other like LS3, these are the long style, but like they have a really small end up here. Focus, there we go. So yeah, the small end where the injector sprays, this bottom piece fits into the stock Grom intake, as did the stock Honda Civic injector, because you can see it's very small down here and it fits into the lower grommet into the intake. So got to use one of those injectors to make it work, unless you want to modify your intake manifold at all. But that's what I did there. I am having some issues, however. When I did get the thing running on the FuelTech and I took it out for a couple of rides, I got the fuel within, I don't know, 10% pretty much everywhere, besides a few little spots. And the closed loop on this thing works pretty good for the FuelTech. But I want to show you a data log of this bike and see if I can get some input from you guys. I'm not using the two grounds that come off of, so these two wires right here are grounds, and these two both go to one single ring terminal normally on a stock bike, and they go to the ground side of the stock coil. I didn't utilize these at all, and I took the LS coil, so this is like a factory Silverado 5.3 ignition coil, and there's two ground inputs going into this guy, and I'm thinking this might be my issue, but I'm not really sure. So there's a signal, there's 4 wires on an LS coil. There's a signal, 2 grounds, and a power. So I ran the power into a relay, which gets direct battery 12 volt when the key's on. And then the signal goes into the factory wire that went to the positive side of the coil. I think that's right. Obviously the bike runs. But the 2 ground wires that I did, I just sent straight to the battery. There's 2 grounds that need to go to an LS coil, and I think one of them is like battery ground and one is like ECU ground or engine ground maybe, and I don't know if maybe these 2 need to go to one of those. I don't know if they do, because I'm having an issue, and this coil could be bad too, I really don't know. But I'm going to show you the data log quick. This is my log that I took when I had the bike running pretty good. I had the bike running pretty good on the stock map sensor, and you can see this is 1st gear, 2nd gear, 3rd gear, and then 4th gear right here. And you can see right here you have some spikes. I have spikes in the RPM, and I don't know why that is or what's causing that, but in the bike, or on the bike when I was riding it, when those spikes popped up, like it felt like as soon as I shifted to 4th gear, it was like out of fuel. Like it felt like it was out of fuel, but the air fuel, which is on the bottom, this is air fuel and the target air fuel. So the darker line, like the straighter line, is the target, and then the squiggly one is the actual air fuel. And you can see it's pretty close, but it's not perfect in some spots. So I have to still clean up the fuel map quite a bit. I've just been waiting to get on a motorcycle dyno again. So I don't know what them spikes are and why the bike felt like it literally lost half its power when I shifted to 4th. I don't know why. So, and this was like the only time that I got a log of it, and it's been so cold I haven't been able to ride it again. So in the meantime, I'm upgrading the fuel system and doing all this other shit, and I'm gonna have to completely retune it again. But yeah, so I don't know if anybody has any ideas on why that is doing that or what's causing it. If it's something to do with the signal wire, I electrical taped the shit out of the signal wire going to the coil, and it's not really exposed anywhere other than like right at the end. So like this wire right here. But I don't know. Another thing too is like the grounds that I was saying, like come off the bike that go to the factory coil typically. I don't know if those have to be to the LS coil or if I can just run the grounds to the battery. I don't know if that has anything to do with it, but I did have to run separate grounds for my intake air temp, my engine temperature, and I also had an issue with the ground on the TPS. So I lost TPS signal on my ride home one day, and it was because this wire, one of these wires, actually pulled out of the this like jumper pigtail thing that goes to this Kawasaki style TPS. So this is an adapter, which I'd like to maybe just get rid of the adapter altogether and just wire it straight into here so there's less, you know, failure points. So yeah, those are little updates on the FuelTech Grom. In other news, I did get a Honda Monkey. I actually, one popped up in my town, and it was a great deal. I picked it up, and I've been looking all year for one of these bikes in this color, and I finally got one. So this is my 2020 Honda Monkey to add to my bike collection. It's all stock besides a Yoshimura RS3 exhaust and the Dinker built intake, the cold air intake there. And it has an ECU flash from CJR, Cameron Jones Racing. So other than that, it's completely stock, just pretty much exhaust intake and a tune. And yeah, can't wait to do some more mods to this thing. I already have plans for it, and can't wait to possibly show you guys if you're interested. If you guys want to see more bike content, be sure to subscribe. If you want to tune in for more FuelTech stuff on this awesome beast, let me know. Let's just end this video off with showing you how loud this damn fuel pump on this bike is. She's gonna be a monster. I don't know if it'll fire or not. I still haven't tuned it for this big ass injector. Literally went from a 240cc injector to a 750. Did nothing to the tune, and it just started. So, I mean, I still have to do a lot of tuning on it. It's been so cold here, I haven't been able to do much with it. So, but anyways, thanks for watching the video, guys. Have a great night and a better tomorrow, and can't wait to make some more content. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to Hunter Tuned. Today, I'm out at the shop with the green Grom on FuelTech FT450, and I recently went through a lot of stuff on this bike, and I upgraded the fuel system and mounted the wideband controller permanently, and I got this little windscreen on it, or it's just like a, I don't even know what you call it. I call it a little windshield. But we got this mounted. I showed some of this stuff in a video that I filmed, but I got a little frustrated with the bike after I put this new Snake Eater GB 750cc injector in here. It's a genuine Bosch 750cc injector that's LS3 height and works with the Grom intake manifold because it's got a really small lower end to it, so it actually fits into the manifold. But I have been messing with this bike for honestly probably like 7 to 8 hours trying to get it to idle and stuff like that. I had a ton of issues just trying to get it to run because this bike is so finicky and so temperamental. It's taught me a lot about tuning and just tweaking stuff here and there to get stuff to run and everything like that. And I'm very honestly stoked with myself for getting this far. The bike previously, like I said, has this 750cc injector in it, and I couldn't get it to idle below like 3,500 RPM every time I would adjust the throttle stop. So like there's a idle throttle stop for the butterfly on the side of the throttle body, just like you have on a Civic or just like you have on you know, Mustang or anything that has a throttle body. They have an adjustment screw to set the blade height. And every time I would move it, even a 1/16 of a turn, every time it'd go below 3,500 RPM, the bike would just shut off. It was like a light switch between running and not running. And it would run away, and then it would come down, and then it would run away and come down, and a lot of stuff was just really far off. And I wish I would have filmed this whole process, but I was using all of my brain power to figure this out, to try to get it to idle. One thing I did notice with this bike is I put this it's a Walbro 255 fuel pump in, and I tried fuel pressures from 20 to 40 to 60, and believe it or not, you would think with a larger injector you would want to run less fuel pressure so you could utilize more of that injector and you wouldn't be running at such a low duty cycle. But that's actually the opposite with this thing. The more fuel pressure I run, the better the bike runs. Because the more pressure you have behind the injector, the more atomization is going to happen. And with this injector, I mean, I don't know if you guys can see in here, the injector is like literally right in the intake port, and the intake valve is probably this far away from the tip of the injector. So that, you know, if the injector was spaced a little higher, a little farther away from the intake valve, it would probably not be as temperamental. But same thing with the rev wedge. Like the Grom Father's rev wedge ran good on Christine's blue bike. I put the Coso intake manifold on with that decapped injector, and it ran like shit at $6 grand. Like it would have like two-step, and it would spit and sputter and pop and bang. And I've learned a lot with atomization on these little bikes, especially when the injector is close to the valve and spraying directly at the intake valve. If, like on the rev wedge, the Grom Father's rev wedge actually points the injector sideways so it doesn't spray the fuel directly at the valve. And tuning the rev wedge was a lot easier, just because when you spray it away from the valve, it has more time to atomize with the incoming air. And I got Christine's bike running great when I put the rev wedge on with the decapped injector. The problem with the decapped injector, the decapped Grom injector, mind you, it doesn't have a good spray pattern. So for her bike, I actually just ordered an injector from Mike O'Connell, and it's like just a basic key and 10 hole, and I'll put the Coso intake back on and hopefully have a better spray pattern. I actually tried running almost the same injector in her bike, and there ain't no fucking way. It's not gonna happen. If it was a little bigger engine like this is, it probably wouldn't have been a big deal, but yeah, so I learned that, you know, more fuel pressure is going to help these little bikes, and putting the feed line, going to a regulator, I did all that. Shit. And on the FuelTech, I've been messing with so much shit on here, it's ridiculous. Like the injector angle. I've been playing around with what injector angle it likes for idle, and I'm literally just trying to get this thing to idle good so I can take it to the dyno next week. And then we can worry about playing with power and stuff like that. That's gonna be a lot easier to do than simply just getting it idling. That's probably the hardest part of tuning these things. I've been doing that. I've been playing with timing, trying to play with timing up and down, and literally a half a degree of timing, or a degree even, changes the idle by like 100 or 200 RPM, just that little bit. It's crazy. Like I said, it's super picky, it's super temperamental, but it's been teaching me a lot. And that's kind of why I like playing around with these things. It's very rewarding at the end of the day when I can go up to it, and this probably won't start that good, but I don't even have to give it throttle. It's pretty close, but I'll just throttle it to get it started here. Yeah, it's a little cold right now, and I probably have to set my throttle body a little higher and then pull more timing out when it gets hot to get it to level, have a more level idle. But even to have it spit and pop like that without giving it throttle is amazing, literally. I don't know what else I'm gonna say, but yeah. Alright guys, I've been out at the shop continuing to work on the Grom, and I've had some issues, but I've also gotten quite far on it, in my opinion. I got it running pretty good on this 750cc Bosch injector, and I did a couple pulls on the dyno, just kind of ironing out the fuel map. I got it on my dyno at the shop, which is kind of a contraption. I'll show you. So I just have it strapped down, and got a little table here for my laptop so I can see what the hell's going on. And I initially had an issue with this bike with the FuelTech, and the sensors weren't reading, like the temperature sensors weren't, so I grounded them separately. I've been having a TPS issue now, where I don't know if you can see on this data log, the TPS is super sporadic. I'm sorry, but my wrist does not flick that fast. And when the TPS is doing that, it's actually way worse farther off in the log. I'll show you. Yeah, like look at this shit. The orange is the TPS signal. So I don't know if that's just a bad ground or what the hell's going on, because when the TPS acts up like that, because this bike runs off of TPS only and not map sensor, so if the TPS malfunctions, the bike just runs like complete crap because it doesn't know what to run on the fuel map, and it just goes like this all the time, going from a lot of fuel to no fuel to a lot of fuel to no fuel, and it definitely screws stuff up. So what I did is I actually took the ground for the TPS and I grounded it just like I did the other sensors, and I grounded it right to the case of the engine. This is all pretty fucking sloppy right now, but I'm just trying to iron out some bugs. So this green wire is the ground for my TPS, and then this is like a little adapter harness to go from the stock TPS wiring to this new key-in. It's like a key-in TPS, I don't know. Supposedly it's like a Kawasaki TPS or something. There's actually the guy that has a motorcycle dyno in my town is a Kawasaki nut. So I might actually take this TPS off before I leave and see if he's got a spare laying around that I could try or buy off of him or whatever. And if that doesn't fix it, I'm gonna look into the power going into this TPS. Also, I'm gonna see if he has a little pigtail to wire instead of having this adapter. I'll just wire it straight to the bike wiring instead of having this jumper, because this jumper harness is pretty shitty. I actually, initially, I had an issue with the bike, and it was doing this, and the ground side of this jumper, so this little wire that's showing right here, that pin, that wire actually broke off. So I depinned it and I soldered it back onto the pin, and I shoved it back in, and I was good for a little while, but now it's starting to act up again, and all this is still connected good. But this jumper harness also has like some random holes in the wire for like right here. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it. It seems like it's still a solid connection, but I don't know. And like I said, I also just grounded it here. I could try grounding it like straight to the battery or straight to the ECU, but I don't know. I don't really want to pull the whole headlight bucket and everything off to get at the pinouts for the back of the ECU. I'd rather just ground it like to the battery or something else. But it's acting up pretty bad. and I don't know if it's a wiring issue or what. I don't know, maybe with the vibrations of this engine, because it does rattle quite a bit and makes a lot of noise and just vibrates in general. If I plug this in, like without, hang on, I'll plug it in quick. So when it's just sitting here without the bike running, my TPS value is on the bottom here. And I'm slowly modulating the throttle. Everything seems fine. All the way up. And I don't have it calibrated to 0 for a reason, but you can see here it's very consistent. I can hold it in one spot. Doesn't jump around. Everything's fine. But as soon as I run the bike, it starts acting up. So I don't know why. If I should try a new TPS or what I should do, because that's the heart of this engine. It needs that to run right. And I did get some other good data on this thing today, just ironing out the fuel map, and it does run pretty good, surprisingly. I just got to iron out some bugs, but I feel like it also just like shuts off randomly, and I think the TPS might be part of it too. I was having some RPM spikes with the tach signal, and it would like randomly lose power and shit. So I also think I fixed that, hopefully. I changed to a square coil instead of the round LS coil. This is the one I had on here, and with the heat sink, and these ones are known for having some issues. But also on the tune, the dwell time, which is like how much the coil charges before it fires, was set really high. It was set at like 5 or 6 milliseconds of charging before it fired. And I lowered all of the dwell times down to 2. I had it at 1.5, and it was kind of not, it was dying a lot. So I bumped it up to 2. I might even go 2.5 or 3, just because I feel like this thing needs a little bit more charge because it has a really shitty battery in it. If the battery was better, it would probably work better. That's another thing too, is maybe the battery's shitty, but I have like 11.5 to 12 volts. So I don't think that's causing the TPS to have issues. Maybe it is. I don't know. It's dead right now, but I've had it charged and then, you know, had more voltage, less voltage, it was still doing it. Actually, now that I think of that, maybe the voltage of the battery does have something to do with it. Like it's not getting a full 5 volts, like the reference voltage or whatever to the TPS, because I think the TPS has a signal, a 5 volt in the ground. And maybe it's not getting that full 5 volts when everything else is getting power sucked on it. See, like my battery's reading 10.7 volts right now because it's fucking junk. And it still reads consistent with the bike off. Yeah, it's too dead to start right now, but yeah, I don't know. Weird. Just figured I'd show some stuff here. I don't know. Okay, have a great night and a better tomorrow. Hopefully you enjoyed some of the Grom stuff. I'm hoping I can iron out these issues before next Wednesday when we got to go to the motorcycle dyno with this bike. So thanks for watching. Have a great night and a better tomorrow.